There we are. We are live.
Hello, Facebook folks,
Hello, like
YouTube
Facebook
folks.
and YouTube. And I wonder how many more you can get on here. I wonder if I could have put my YouTube channel on here.
I think you might be able to.
Oh,
We'll ask about that next week.
next time. Yeah.
Yes,
All
most
right.
definitely.
Well, since I guess I'll have to share this later since I'm the one talking tonight. I'll share it on all my junk later.
Yeah, I'm just kind of here and hanging out and chilling.
Yeah. Kelsey's not here tonight because he's helping take care of a sick friend who's at the hospital, if I heard correctly.
Correct.
Apparently, she's had repetitive problems and had to go back this afternoon. Or he took her back, or was she already there? I can't remember now.
He took her back.
He took her back. Okay.
Yep.
So she'd already been in there. Well, all right. Abnormalalabama.com. And we got a Facebook user saying hello. I don't know if that's you or somebody else. Hello,
Let me
hello.
look. Hello, hello. I'm not sure who it is. Let me go to Facebook and find out.
Okay. So abnormalalabama.com, myhauntedolls.com. My name is Kevin Kane. I'm a writer, paranormal investigator, haunted collector, and an acquaintance here of Abnormal Alabama for almost 2 years now.
Yes, I know. We've been doing good. That was Brandon Lee Moore.
Okay. Hello, Brandon Lee Moore. Again, Kelsey's not. He might come in later. He said, but I'm gonna cut him slack on that. So he probably won't be able to come on, but he might.
He might.
But I shared a link with him in case he is. But he's, again, if you just tuned in, he's taking care of a sick friend, so he may be on later. So meanwhile, I'll get to entertain you tonight.
Ah,
And
got any good Halloween stuff going on?
we're going to check. Well, I don't know if we're going to get any kind of trick or treating this year, but I've sure got my inflatables out there. I've got my headless horseman inflatable. I got my giant jack-o'-lantern inflatable all lit up out there. And you can see him from the road.
I've got my part of my costume, regardless of whether we're having Halloween or not.
Yeah.
I'm having Halloween.
Yeah, we're gonna celebrate it here somehow. If we don't get anybody coming, we're gonna be watching some scary flicks and it's on a Saturday night this year, dad darn this stupid COVID-19.
I know. It's a full
Perfect.
moon. It's on a Saturday. And we get an extra hour of trick or treating.
Hey, you COVID-19 for doing this too.
Right. Makes me upset.
Because this would have been the night. I bet the kids would have been out longer, and that's what I miss about the neighborhood over in Westover. I would have had a load of trick or treaters.
Yes.
It was so much that I just started getting where I was sitting outside on the driveway, passing out candy in my costume. Because as soon as I started out just letting them come to the door, but as soon as I shut the door, ding dong, trick or treat. So I'm like,
Yeah.
I can keep letting bugs in the house, or I'm just going to go on out there and sit. And
How long did you live there?
7 years.
Well, you probably had my little girl, Bug.
I may have at some point, didn't know who she was then.
Yeah. And she's grown up over the years, and she wants to go trick or treating, but she doesn't.
It's that age where you want to, but you feel like you're too old and it's just not cool anymore. And they'll laugh at me. And
well, she's 17, almost 18. But let me tell you something. I have only missed 1 year my entire life of trick or treating. 1 year.
1 year.
I love trick or treating. And I wrecked my car that night. So it's not a good thing for me not to go trick or treating because I wrecked my car.
No, that's not good.
No, I celebrated at a wedding with some friends.
Okay. Well, let's see. I'll go ahead and do some promoting here. We'll go ahead and throw up Kelsey's book. I don't know where that. I don't guess he ever put that other cover back on here. He's got this one with the misprint on it, but hey, it's something. Dating the Dead and Spectrophilia. Datingthedead.com. Abnormalalabama.com. He's got some interesting stories here. I think I got this on ebook. Got the woman who claims to have had sex with Bigfoot. You got the one in love with his car. All these strange. It's not just people dating ghosts. They're dating inanimate objects. And these are true stories.
But I think in that book, don't quote me on this, but I think in that book's the one where they dig up the dead people every year and like clean them up and parade them around.
So there's two books, isn't it? This is the second book, right?
I think that is the second one.
Yeah.
Don't quote me on that. He'll be mad at me because I can't remember. But I do believe that it's in one of those books.
Yeah. And
that's a pretty interesting story. And
yeah. Yeah, it is.
My internet is going in and out, Kevin.
Oh, yeah. And I noticed you froze for a second there. You were in the frozen grin. Okay, here's myhauntedDolls.com. You'll find my shop out there, books, My Haunted Collection, which tells about some of the first haunted dolls and items I collected starting in 2013. And that has some of the stories behind the most popular and the most far out, like that little boy on the cover there who comes from the island of the dolls in Mexico. So check out that
Harold,
book.
Right?
Yeah, Baby Harold. Not to be confused with the Harold on Ghost Adventures. That's a different doll. This is Baby Harold from the Island of the Dolls. And if that interests you, you can see how I started out in Legends of Indian Narrows, my ghostly childhood memoirs from the old neighborhood I grew up in. And if you like fiction, I've got some fiction novels based on some of my haunted dolls, like Patty Doll, Tammy Baby, or one of my haunted paintings there, Crimson, the Blood Painting. That's the latest novel I'd written. We're coming up on the 1 year anniversary of that book. I do have a new book in the works, which is the sequel to my haunted collection. It's called My Haunted Collection, The Dark Side, which tells about some of the creepier and more evil items I've collected, including a rocking horse doll that actually came from the home where a father shot and killed his wife and 2 children and then turned the gun on himself. The house is abandoned. It's creepy. And yet that doll survived that house for many years until a few years ago, a coworker of mine dug it up. You'll have to read the book when it comes out to get the rest of that story.
I had to plug my computer in. It was dying on me.
But check out myhauntedDolls.com. There's also the link to my YouTube page where you can watch the videos I've done of the haunted dolls. And I posted multiple videos last week. I did pretty good. We got my visit to Gaineswood I talked about last week, and I did a spirit box session with that haunted doll Amy, the purple-eyed doll, and people love that one. Everybody's saying how beautiful she is when they comment on the video. But that's My Haunted Dolls, Kevin Kane on YouTube. But I just say go to myhauntedDolls.com and follow the link on the link page. So tonight I'm going to tell some creepy stories. But first, I told Kelsey I would share about where I went this past Saturday, which was Noccalula Falls, right here in Gaston, Alabama, about an hour and 15 minutes from my house. This place, it is very pretty. Here's a bigger picture. It'll cover both our faces, but there's a nice panoramic photo I took. Have you been to Noccalula? I know you've been to Noccalula, haven't you?
I have. Mm-hmm. Yes. You want to tell the legend about it?
Yeah, there's even from what I heard, I've not read anything, but I know when I was a kid, I heard about, and it's probably just urban legend, but I heard about a ghost attached to these falls. Have you heard about the ghost?
I vaguely remember it.
Yeah.
I remember the Indian girl that jumped.
Yeah, that's where it comes from. I'll go ahead and tell the story and show some pictures here. Here's a picture of the statue right there of Noccalula. Originally known as Black Creek Falls, the legend of Noccalula, as written by Matilda Bilbro, says that long ago on a mountain summit within sight and sound of a rushing waterfall lived a great Indian chief whose young daughter, Noccalula, was famed far and wide for her beauty and loveliness of character. Many gallant braves lobbied the old chief for the hand of Noccalula, but only one was favored by the girl's father, a rich chief of a powerful neighboring tribe who had much to offer in exchange: wampum, horses, blankets. Noccalula pleaded that her heart was already given to a young brave from her own tribe, so she did not want to marry this man her father had picked out. This young warrior, though noted for his skill and valor, possessed little in worldly goods, so the old chief refused to listen and ordered his daughter to make ready for the marriage that he had arranged. What was a maiden's silly fancy compared to many horses, much wampum, in union with another strong tribe? The girl's lover was driven from the tribe, and a marriage agreement was made with the neighboring chief. The wedding day came, and a great feast was prepared. In silence, Noccalula allowed herself to be arrayed in festive wedding robes. Overcome with grief, she quietly slipped away from the merrymakers during the festivities as the soft, rhythmic rush of waters called for her. For a moment, she stood poised upon the brink of a yawning chasm, much like that picture, that statue they have there at the falls, where they claim she took her jump. For a moment, she stood poised upon the brink of the yawning chasm. One leap, and she took the step that ended her life, depriving not only her husband and greedy father, but her lover of any hope of stealing her away, her community of all she had to offer, and herself of all that could have been. Heartbroken, the remorseful father gave the great cascade his daughter's name. Since that day, the waterfall has been called Noccalula Falls. And there it is. And the ghost legends I've heard, that's there on the right side. You see the bottom of the statue. That's supposed to be where that rock there's where supposedly she jumped, I believe, or that might just be where they decided to put the statue. But I think that's where they believe she jumped. And people have told. I know when I was a kid, I've heard stories about it. It's all as most ghost stories. It's always at nighttime. At night, if you're near the falls, people have heard the cries of the princess, the lovely Indian princess, and have even seen her white apparition jump into the falls. She leaps over, but just before hitting the water, her apparition vanishes, dissolving into thin air.
What is that to the left of the falls there?
There's a little church back there.
I'm talking about go to the rock right in front of the falls.
To the left.
Yes. You see the guy in the red shirt?
Yeah.
Directly below him on the rocks. I see the little tree there, and then just below that, what is that?
Looks like something in the rocks. I think there was a couple little plants growing out of the crack there.
Okay.
And I think there's some shadow there.
I couldn't quite tell what it was.
Yeah, it's a ghost.
Maybe.
But yeah, I remember seeing those little plants were growing out of the rock there, and it's like a little ledge, I guess, kind of down there. I don't think it's big enough to stand on or anything. But the rocks are jutting out, and there's a little shadow there. I wish I caught a picture of a ghost.
Well, go down just under that uh, um, object there.
Uh-huh.
Looks like two eyes right there.
Two
But
eyes.
yes, like it'd be like giant eyes.
Giants.
There may be a giant sleeping under there. You never know.
Oh, a sleeping giant.
Yeah, have you seen that place when it's flooding?
I think when I went there when I was a kid, I remember that thing really roaring. I think it was flooded then the first time, but my memory's so vague. I just remember it was rushing even harder than that right there. There was really a lot of water up top there. It was like a rushing rapid, and it was really pouring off there when I was there as a kid. But that, I guess, is the normal flow. I don't know.
Yeah, that's probably normal or maybe a little
Yeah.
dry for right now.
Yeah, I remember it rained a lot when I was a kid. We went there after 3 or 4 days of rain, and that thing was like rapids up there. I mean, if you fell in, you would have gotten carried away over that fall, no doubt. It was
Carl says
a
it gets all the
river.
way to the top. I'm sorry, Kevin. I didn't mean to talk over you.
No, you didn't.
Carl says it gets all the way to the top nearly during a tremendous flooding.
Oh, okay. Oh, wow.
We'll have to go up there
That
when it
wasn't.
floods. That would be interesting to go see
Yeah.
it.
Now, I haven't seen it that high before, but it was further up than right there. I know it was maybe halfway up there. The trees, I don't on the banks, I don't think were quite submerged, but they were. There was water up there. And I remember up on top, you didn't see any rock. It was a solid rapid flowing over that waterfall. So, but I like
Alabama,
Alabama.
Alabama has some beautiful waterfalls around.
Yeah, and there's other things here to see. I forgot about how big this. I forgot there was a petting zoo at this place.
Mm-hmm.
And it's got the covered bridge. Look at that! Oh, that awesome covered bridge with a pond underneath. And they've already got some of their Christmas lights and trees up there. And I remember the old cabins they had there that people used to live in, and there's a little kitchen in one of the cabins there. But the coolest thing we were there mainly for a powwow that went on all day Saturday, which is a gathering of Native Americans. They had a bunch of vendors there selling things, Indian knickknacks. I meant to bring in I bought a couple of fox skins. I meant to bring them in here. They're out there in my den.
Oh,
But
what are you going to do with those?
I was going to display them, I guess, somewhere. But they're really pretty. I was sitting there petting them. I was like, it's like having a pet I don't have to feed.
The kind I'd like to have. I'm so mad at Oreo right now. She knocked my tea over just a minute ago, and I was so mad.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
Yeah, I put her booty out of the bedroom.
Now, when I posted these photos Saturday, and people saw that, first thing I was getting, is there any ghost story with that covered bridge? Because all covered bridges have ghosts. And I said, I don't know. I don't even know if that's a replica or if that's a really old one that's been there. Because it looks pretty new. And if it's an old original, they've kept it in fantastic shape.
I bet it's been redone a lot.
Yeah. And that's definitely a man-made pond there. That's why I'm wondering if was maybe just a replica bridge they built there in modern years.
I have an interesting story about a covered bridge.
Oh.
I was working. I'm going to tell some tales about when I was a lot younger and was working on the ambulance.
Uh-huh.
This one day, we went to drop a patient off, and we did the VA contract, and we dropped a patient off, and we saw there was a covered bridge. So we decided we're going to take the ambulance over the covered bridge. We were meeting the weight limit and all, and well, not quite exactly meeting the height limit. got under the bridge, got all the way through, to the very last spot, and I took out just a little bit of the light bar on top of the ambulance. So that's my funny story about a covered bridge. No hauntings. I'm sorry. That was one up in Blount County. Oh, the things I did on that ambulance and as a kid.
I had a. I was getting off the subject of Noccalula now, but and covered bridges. But that reminded me of my sixth grade teacher. Every Halloween, he would tell his classes stories of when he was a paramedic while he was working his way through college to get his teaching certificate. He was a paramedic too, and he had stories about that. Now he might have strictly worked at a morgue though, but he did pickups, and I might be wrong. He might have worked at a morgue, because he was at the morgue a lot when these things happened. And one of them, the funny one, was when, as you well know, when bodies are dead, even for a while, sometimes they can spasm, and I guess it's the muscles reacting. They can sit up, and
they can. It happens.
They had this Coke vendor would come in to fill the Coca-Cola machine, and he was this little old man that come in, a little bit of a hunchback. And he would creep in there, pulling the cart. And this particular day, the hallway near the morgue, and he had to go past those morgue rooms to get to the Coke machine at the end of the hallway. This particular day, they had some tables pulled out there in the hall for some reason, so he had to climb over the tables. He couldn't pull his cart back there. And so they saw him climbing up over those tables, trying to get over them like hurdles, climbing over them with all these coats he's dragging to the machine to put in. Next thing they know, they hear, "Ooh!" And here he comes. He is flying. He said they never saw that old man just leaping those tables. Now he had to climb them to get down the hall. Now he's coming back leaping these tables. And out the door he went. Barely snatched his cart and yanked it out the door, and they went down the hall to see what happened to one of those bodies that sat up in the room. It happened just as he was walking by.
Okay, I do have one of these stories. Okay, I was a student, and I went and rode on the ambulance, and I was supposed to leave, and my buddy that was working that night, we called them body totes, and he we went and it was about a 2-hour drive to go pick this body up. On the way there, dadgummit, it's the middle of the night. We're doing probably 120 miles an hour at least, got to be. Well, this white horse jumps out in front of us in the middle of nowhere. So we slam on the brakes. We both about pee our pants, and we pick up. We slow down. We're calming down. We're ready to get back and go to sleep. But it's one of those nights. Well, we get to this nursing home. We pick up the body. We put it on the stretcher, and we put it in the back of the truck. And we're going down the road, and we had stopped, and we grabbed. I think Taco Bell was still open then. We grabbed something to eat, grabbed a drink, and of course, they always ask, "You got somebody back there?" Yeah, dead body, And so we're going down the road. We're back in the middle of nowhere, and all of a sudden, we hear something in the back of the truck. That thing sits up. You have never seen two people turn white as a ghost, slam the door shut between the front and the back, and lock it. I mean, let's see, I was an 18-year-old kid at the time, and he was probably 19, 20 maybe. So we were young and had not been around a lot of dead people at the time because we were both fairly new.
Yeah.
And it was one of them funny experiences, but one I can tell today. I'm not going to tell you how many years later, folks.
Well, one thing I forgot to mention, going back to the Noccalula Falls thing, I mentioned the Indian powwow. They had Native American dancers there, and the perfect place to have it there, Noccalula, named after a Native American and former Native American territory. There's that statue of Noccalula again near the falls. But while I was there, met a special guest there who happens to be the son of the old Duke himself, John Wayne. I'm a grandson, actually, I meant to say. I got to see John Wayne's grandson. There I am. His name is John T. Wayne. Dang, if he don't look just like his grandpappy. Same eyes, same build. He even had the same swagger when he came walking around there.
I see you all dressed up in your cowboy hat.
Yeah, I had my cowboy hat on, everything. Yeah, I was dressed up for the even though I got Cherokee in me, I guess I was too light skinned to really pass off as the Indian. So I wore the cowboy hat, and my dad wore the Daniel Boone outfit.
I'd like to see pictures of that.
And but yeah, John T. Wayne is his name, and he writes Western books. So I bought one of his books, and I told him about my books. And he's very soft spoken. He doesn't have the deep voice. You know, John Wayne had the deep voice. I can't do a good impression. Let's put the wagons in a circle. But this guy's, you know, a lot softer voice, but he's a really nice guy. And that was pretty cool.
Did he sign your book?
Yeah, the book I bought, I'm holding it there in the picture. He signed that. And he had some True Grit. You know, True Grit's one of my favorite movies, that John Wayne movie. The only Academy Award the Duke won. So, so he had T-shirts and caps with True Grit on it. So I bought a cap. I like hats for some reason. I've got all kinds of strange. You know what? I went to that antique store, and y'all probably saw it in Columbiana, there next to the general store that's at the corner of that. What's that street? You got the roundabout with the old, I guess that's the town hall there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's a little antique store there. Across the street, they got another one called Dragonfly down near where the traffic light is down there. But this one's next to that little general store there. And I found this old hat. God, this thing's got to be from the days of Laurel and Hardy. Look at this thing. It's too small. Well, no, it fits me a little bit there.
I like that.
Do I have it on right? Yeah, I've got it on right. Got the feather on the side. And this is the actual hat with the silk and everything. It's not a costume hat. This is the actual hat like Laurel and Hardy used to wear about, when was that, 30s, 40s? I don't know. And I like these because you can wear it like this, or this is how they came up with the fedora. You could put the brim down up top, up front there, and have a fedora.
I love a fedora.
Yeah.
I own several.
Yeah. So I just had to buy that. I thought it was too small for my head, but that actually fit most of the way down. That's how they wore them back then, like a little top hat up there.
They did. And, Kelsey's a big hat person, too.
Kelsey?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've seen him wear different hats and stuff. I got all kinds of fedoras, and of course, being an Alabama fan, I got the houndstooth fedora too. But I've actually got, it's not ones like you buy in the stores today. I've got a vintage one from the 60s I found off eBay that I got that's really cool. So I like to wear that during Alabama games sometime. All right. Should we get to some scary stories now that we've talked about Noccalula? Let me get John T. Wayne off of there. I've got some scary stories. I posted a new episode of my podcast earlier today. You can find that at My Haunted Dolls. I've got a podcast show. I don't mention that enough. Y'all need to go out there and see that. It's like radio. It's not video like this. It's just a recording of me talking with some spooky background music, and I tell stories. And it's something I put together all by myself. And today was the 40th episode.
Wow.
So I do it twice a month. So it's been a couple of years, just about, I guess. But I got a story I shared today. I'm going to go ahead and share it here because I remember hearing this when I was a kid. This is the perfect legend for Halloween. And I'm going to pull it up here in a minute. Have you ever heard the story about Bloody Bones, or better known as Raw Head and Bloody Bones?
I don't think I have.
Hadn't heard that one? Let
I
me
don't think
pull it.
I have.
Yeah, I hadn't heard that one. Let's see here. I'm going to pull it up here in just a second. I shared it today. Just got to find it here. I wish they had a search on this website where I found it. All right. I'm going to pull it up here. Sorry for the technical difficulties here. Please stand by.
Please stand by. Please stand by. While you're doing that, I will pull up a picture of me. That's me in my fedora.
Oh, let me see here. That's you in your fedora. Look at there. got your little suit on and everything.
I did. It was a shirt and a tie. We were going out partying one night.
Oh,
I never do
I've
that.
got
No.
never, huh? Well, I've got the story up here now, Bloody Bones. Here, I'll throw up that creepy looking scarecrow while we're telling this just to help set the mood here. Where's that booger at? There he is, just to set the mood there. Bloody Bones. All right. The ghost story of Bloody Bones began as a nursery rhyme for children in Ireland and Scotland hundreds of years ago. Tommy Rawhead and Bloody Bones were two boogeymen who would kidnap children who misbehaved. At first, they haunted wells, ponds, and other bodies of water, but then they moved inside the house and lived under sinks and drains. There was a rhyme connected to them that went like this: Rawhead and Bloody Bones steals naughty children from their homes, takes them to his dirty den, and they are never seen again. Ooh. There was no real story associated with it. If children were acting up, their parents would just say, "Watch out, or Bloody Bones will come and get you." Bloody Bones was a dreadful, crouching creature with blood running down his face. He sat waiting on a pile of raw bones, the bones of children who told lies or said bad words. As time went by, it turned into a simple story about a ghostly skeleton that creeps up the stairs saying, "I'm on the first step. I'm on the second step." Later, the tale migrated here to America and became first an African American folk tale about a mean little boy named Little 8 John who never listened to his mother. He squashed frogs, climbed trees, sat backwards on chairs. His mother told him to stop doing all this or Bloody Bones would come and get him. But of course, he didn't pay any attention to her. One night, Bloody Bones came and ate Little John, leaving just a bloody stain on the kitchen table. The next morning, his mother was cleaning the house and she wiped up the stain, and that was the end of Little John. Eventually, the story migrated here to the Ozarks, to the good old southeast of USA here, and became an Appalachian folktale. This is the one I heard when I was a kid, about an old witch who brings a dead hog back to life. Now, talk about abnormal Alabama. Here we go. Here's some abnormal right here. Way back in the Ozark Mountains, nestled in a hollow deep within the woods, there was a little old house. In that house, there lived an ugly, scrawny old woman with a hooked nose and crossed eyes. She had a reputation of being the best conjuring woman in the area. Her house was full of herbs and roots and bottles filled with conjuring medicine. The walls were lined with strange books brimming with magical spells. She had only one friend, a mean, tough old razorback hog that ran wild around her place. The hog rooted through her garbage and ate all her roots, potions, and leftover spells. Some folks say it ate so much that it could walk upright and talk just like a man. That's what some folks say. One fellow claimed he'd seen the pig sitting in the rocker on old Betty's porch, chattering away to her while she stewed up some potions in the kitchen. But everyone discounted that story on account of the fellow who told it was a little too fond of moonshine. Rawhead was the name old Betty gave the razorback, referring maybe to the way the ugly creature looked a little bit like some of the dead pigs come butchering time down in Hog Scald Hollow. The razorback didn't mind the funny name. Rawhead kept following old Betty around her little cabin and rooting up the kitchen leftovers. He'd even walk to town with her when she came to the local mercantile to sell her home remedies. Well, folks in town got so used to seeing Rawhead and old Betty around the town that it looked mighty strange one day around hog driving time when old Betty came to the mercantile without him. "Where's Rawhead?" the owner asked as he accepted her basket full of home remedy potions. The liquid in the bottle swished in an agitated manner as old Betty said, "I ain't seen him around today, and I'm mighty worried. Have you seen him here in town?" "Nobody's seen him around today. They would have told me if they did," the mercantile owner said. "We'll keep a lookout for you." "Well, that's mighty kind of you. If you see him, tell him to come home straight away," old Betty said. The mercantile owner nodded agreement as he handed over her weekly pay. Old Betty fussed herself all the way home. It wasn't like Rawhead to disappear, especially not the day they went to town. The man at the mercantile always saved the best scraps for the mean old razorback, and Rawhead never missed a visit. When the old conjuring woman got home, she mixed up a potion and poured it onto a flat plate. "Where's that old hog got to?" she asked the liquid. It clouded over, and then a series of pictures formed. First, old Betty saw the good-for-nothing hunter that lived on the next ridge, sneaking around the forest, rounding up razorback hogs that did not belong to him. One of the hogs was Rawhead. Then she saw him take the hogs down to Hog Scald Hollow, where folks from the next town were slaughtering their razorbacks. Then she saw her hog, Rawhead, slaughtered with the rest of the pigs and hung up for gutting. The final picture in the liquid was the pile of bloody bones that had once been her hog, and his scraped clean head lying with the other hog heads in a pile. Old Betty was infuriated by the death of her only friend. It was murder to her, plain and simple. Everyone in 3 counties knew that Rawhead was her friend, and that lazy, hog-stealing, good-for-nothing hunter on the ridge was going to pay for slaughtering him. Now, old Betty tried to practice white conjuring most of the time, but she knew the dark secrets too. She pulled out an old secret book her granny had given her and turned to the very last page. She lit several candles and put them around the plate containing the liquid picture of Rawhead and his bloody bones. Then she began to chant, "Rawhead and bloody bones, rawhead and bloody bones." The light from the windows disappeared as if the sun had been snuffed out like a candle. Dark clouds billowed into the clearing where old Betty's cabin stood, and the howl of dark spirits could be heard in the wind that pummeled the treetops. "Rawhead and bloody bones, rawhead and bloody bones," Betty continued the chant until a bolt of silver lightning left the plate and streaked out through the window, heading in the direction of Hog Scald Hollow. When the silver light struck Rawhead's severed head, which was piled on the hunter's wagon with the other hog heads, it tumbled to the ground and rolled until it was touching the bloody bones that had once inhabited its body. As the hunter's wagon rumbled away toward the ridge where he lived, the enchanted Rawhead called out, "Bloody bones, get up and dance." Immediately, the bloody bones reassembled themselves into the skeleton of a razorback hog walking upright. As Rawhead had often done when he was alone with old Betty, the head hopped on top of his skeleton, and Rawhead went searching through the woods for weapons to use against the hunter. He borrowed the sharp teeth of a dying panther, the claws of a long-dead bear, and the tail from a rotting raccoon, and put them over his skinned head and bloody bones. All right, where was I? Okay, then Rawhead headed up the track toward the ridge, looking for the hunter who had slaughtered him. Rawhead slipped past the thief on the road and slid into the barn where the hunter kept his horse and wagon. Rawhead climbed up into the loft and waited for the hunter to come home. It was dusk when the hunter drove into the barn and unhitched his horse. The horse snorted in fear, sensing the presence of Rawhead in the loft, wondering what was disturbing his usually calm horse. The horse looked around and saw a large pair of eyes staring down at him from the darkness in the loft. The hunter frowned, thinking it was one of the local kids fooling around in his barn. "Land of Goshen, what have you got those big eyes for?" he snapped, thinking the kids were trying to scare him with some crazy mask. "To see your grave," Rawhead rumbled very softly. The hunter snorted irritably and put his horse into the stall. "Very funny, ha ha," the hunter said. When he came out of the stall, he saw Rawhead had crept forward a bit. His luminous yellow eyes and his bare claws could clearly be seen. "Land of Goshen, what have you got those big claws for?" he snapped. "You look ridiculous." "To dig your grave," Rawhead intoned softly, his voice a deep rumble that raised the hairs on the back of the hunter's neck. He stirred uneasily, not sure how the crazy kid in his loft could have made such a scary sound, if it really was a crazy kid. Feeling a little spooked, he hurried to the door and let himself out the barn. Rawhead slipped out of the loft and climbed down the side of the barn behind him. With nary a rustle to reveal his presence, Rawhead raced through the trees and up the path to a large, moonlit rock. He hid in the shadows of the huge stones so that the only things showing were his gleaming yellow eyes, his bear claws, and his raccoon tail. When the hunter came level with the rock on the side of the path, he gave a startled yup. Staring at Rawhead, he gasped, "You nearly knocked the heart right out of me, you crazy kid. Land of Goshen, what have you got that crazy tail for?" "To sweep your grave," Rawhead boomed. his enchanted voice echoing through the woods, getting louder and louder with each echo. The hunter took his heels and ran for his cabin. He raced past the old well house, past the woodpile, over the rotting fence, and into his yard. But Rawhead was faster. When the hunter reached his porch, Rawhead leapt from the shadows and loomed above him. The hunter stared in terror up at Rawhead's gleaming yellow eyes and the ugly razorback hog's head, his bloody bone skeleton with its long bare claws, sweeping raccoon's tail, and his gleaming sharp panther teeth. What have you got those big teeth for? He gasped desperately, stumbling backwards from the terrible figure before him. To eat you up like you wanted to eat me, Rawhead roared, descending upon the good-for-nothing hunter. The murdering thief gave one long scream in the moonlight. Then there was silence, and the sound of crunching, crunching, crunch, crunch. Nothing more was ever seen or heard of the lazy hunter who lived on the ridge. His horse also disappeared that night. But sometimes folks would see Rawhead roaming through the forest in the company of his old friend, Old Betty. And once a month, on the night of the full moon, Rawhead would ride the hunter's horse through town, wearing the old man's blue coveralls over his bloody bones, with a hole cut out for his raccoon tail. In his bloody, bare-clawed hands, he carried his raw, razorback hog's head, lifting it high against the full moon for everyone to see. And this year on Halloween night, it's the full moon. So if you're out trick-or-treating or out gallivanting around and you hear the sound of horses' hooves pounding down the asphalt coming your way, you better run inside and lock the door because it just might be Rawhead coming, hungry, saliva dripping, ready to eat you. And that's the Rawhead Bloody Bone story.
Oh, man. Oh, man. I found a couple of stories from Birmingham.
Oh, okay. From Birmingham.
Do you want me to read one?
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you want me to read one?
Yeah.
What was once a quiet area deep in the woods now rings out with a baby's cries in the night. In an old mansion, a gray lady paces the floor waiting for a soldier who will never come home. A ghostly serial killer still stalks his prey in his favorite dark alley. Birmingham is filled with apparitions of the past who haunt the passageways of our city's history. These ghost stories were born out of real life events and people, but it's up to you to decide if they live or in the afterlife.
You're kind of coming and going. So.
Early Birmingham. I made my internet's kind of acting up on me. Maybe I should say this till next week when I have. Can you hear me?
Yeah, now I can hear you.
Okay. Early Birmingham resembled a Wild West town. There were miners, gamblers, saloons, brothels, and even shootouts. It was during this chaotic time of astonishing growth and change that Harry the Hacker arrived on the scene. At first, people feared that Jack the Ripper had relocated to the Magic City, but that monster did not cross an ocean to kill our local streetwalkers. We had our own serial killer. Although similar to Ripper in that Harry targeted women of the night, he developed his own style. One of the ladies was left without her lady parts in the dark alley across from the YMCA and Concord building, while Harry piled his deadly tray. Along with the ladies, a black man was found hung from a window grill, probably more a victim of racism than one of Harry. But it was convenient to blame the hacker. Or was he perhaps a witness? Harry's identity was never discovered, since the only clues were his dark clothing and hat. That hat has shown up in the group of photos snapped in Harry's alley during the haunted tours by Birmingham's historic touring company.
No, I didn't.
Oh. As the Civil War launched from the State House in Montgomery, men signed up for war. One man faced with his teary-eyed fiancée shoved his sword into a tree and declared his love would last as long as the sword remained. He never returned. When the tree was later cut down, it revealed a sickle more suited to a farmer, plus a sword that would come in handy on the battlefield. The sickle was placed in the Arlington Antebellum home and gardens, but after the numerous mysterious movements of the tool, it was placed in a frame to keep it from roaming. Speculation is that the bride to be is still looking for the lost soldier. I wish they would say where these were.
Yeah, I wish so too.
Um, real quick, just give me just a second.
Oh, okay.
Okay, the Senate also have spotted a gray lady in a long gown standing on the upper porch, thought to be Miss Florence Mudd, daughter of Judge Mudd, who built the house. She said she would never leave my lovely mansion. According to Wolfgang Poe, founder of Birmingham Historic Touring Company, the director no longer looks back in the house when he hears the creaking sound of an empty chair rocking on its own accord. Visitors have also heard the sounds of boots tromping above, probably from the Federal soldiers once stationed there. Okay, here's one about East Lake Park.
Okay.
If you hear a splash one evening at East Lake Park, don't look. It could be the spirit of May Halls, a little girl who got in the way of Daddy's new life. Poor little May rode on the rail out to the East Lake with her father, Richard, maybe hoping they would take a boat ride. Unfortunately, her only destination was the bottom of the lake. Worse still, no one could identify her body. Even classmates were paraded past her corpse. Soon after, her mother and sister were found in the Lakeview Lake, where the Highland Golf Course stands today. You can still see the grand staircase that once led to the family's wondrous Victorian resort. Her daddy was plucked off the train as he passed through Birmingham with his new bride. Before he could be hanged at the old jail, the site of what is now the YMCA, beware of the haunted pool, riots from those who preferred he be lynched took more lives than Hall's murders. The murders became international news. Forever 6-year-old May slips in and out of the lake, pets the geese, and calls for her mother and her sister. That's interesting.
Yeah, it is.
I will be right back. I'm going to let you go on and read one. I will be right back.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. All right. I've got one pulled up here already. I was looking at called Bubble Bath. Sounds like a sweet story, isn't it? But no, it's not sweet. This is a scary little tale. This is a good one for Halloween. All right, Bubble Bath. Here we go. Jennifer was sitting at the desk in her bedroom, finishing up her homework. She had an exam the next day and needed to study. As she was searching for one of her school books, she received a text message on her cell phone. She didn't recognize the number, but the text read, "Take a bubble bath and go to bed. It's a school night. Mom." She probably ran out of credit and texted me from someone else's phone, thought Jennifer. Because she didn't recognize the number, but it looks like it's from her mom, and definitely what her mom would say. She had already been planning to take a nice, relaxing bubble bath soon anyway, so she undressed, grabbed a clean towel, and walked into the bathroom. She stopped in her tracks, surprised. The bathtub had already been filled to the brim. Huh, that's strange, she thought. I guess Mom filled it in advance before she left. Shrugging her shoulders, Jennifer dropped the towel and climbed into the bath. Her whole body was submerged before she became aware of a burning sensation all over her skin. Within seconds, the burning feeling got worse and worse until she was crying out in agony. She jumped out of the bath, but it was too late. To her horror, she saw the water stained red, blood red. The skin on her arms and legs was beginning to peel off. She looked at her leg, and the skin there was peeling off too. Then her chest and stomach began to peel. All the skin on her body was coming off. Drip, drip, drip. Pieces of her skin fell to the floor, and she started screaming in pain. Her blood formed a puddle around her on the bathroom floor. In terrible pain, Jennifer opened the door of the bathroom and hobbled out. She made her way to her bedroom. Every step was agony. She left a bloody trail along the carpet. Finally, she picked up her cell phone to call the police, but there was a new text message waiting for her on the phone. It read, "Next time, bathe in water." And that's how the story ends. Man, I would have liked to have seen a little bit more of that. That's kind of freaky. That's one of those stories that leaves you going, wait, what? What happened? What was that? I assume she must have had a tub full of some kind of acid and some crazy maniac set her up there. But I digress. We're going to get into some more creepy stories, some Halloween stories. In fact, here's another one I shared that's called The Sickle. So I'll share this one, then we can do our mid-hour break. This one comes from Japan. Japan's got all kinds of freaky horror stories, man. In fact, that's where we got some movies like The Ring, which was Ringu, I believe, in Japan. They had all kinds of horror movies that we borrowed from and horror stories. But here is The Sickle. All right. A married couple lived in a small house in Japan with their son and daughter. The son was very angry with his sister and wanted to play a really nasty prank on her. He decided that he would secretly videotape her on the toilet and then post the video online. He wanted to humiliate his sister in front of all of her friends. And what better way than the internet? The boy hid a video camera under a towel in the bathroom. Minutes later, his sister went to the bathroom and locked the door behind her. She never came out again. Her mother started to wonder what was taking her daughter so long. She banged on the bathroom door and called out the girl's name, but got no reply. Worried, she told her husband, and eventually they managed to force the door open. What they found inside the bathroom filled them with horror. Their daughter was lying in a pool of blood on the tiled floor. She had been stabbed to death. Her face was so sliced up that she was unrecognizable, and her tongue had been cut off. There was a bloody sickle lying on the floor beside her. If you haven't heard of a sickle, it's like kind of a big hook that you hold in your hand. You can slash things with. Now, a scythe is like a bigger version of that, but this is a smaller. It's what they call a sickle. They used to use that on the farms back in the day. So the police were called immediately, and they came to investigate the scene. Inspecting the bathroom, they found that it posed a mystery. The door had been locked from the inside. The window was securely latched, and the bathroom was so small that nobody could have been hiding inside, lying in wait for the girl. So how was she murdered? The police saw that the only possible entrance was a small vent in the wall that measured only 10 by 10 inches. Nobody could have fit through such a small space. The police were absolutely stumped. They could not figure out how anyone could have gotten inside to kill herself or to kill the girl. The police carefully dusted the sickle for fingerprints, but unfortunately, they found none. At this point, they felt that the case would never be solved. They questioned the mother and father, but when it came time to question the son, he was nowhere to be found. They searched the house, and they eventually found him curled up in a wardrobe closet. His eyes were wild, and he was sobbing uncontrollably. His hands were shaking violently. They noticed that he was holding a video camera. Unable to question him, the police decided to review the videotape. What they saw in the footage would terrify them for years to come. They pressed play on the video camera, and the screen showed the young girl sitting on the toilet. When she finished and stood up, the police noticed some movement in the small vent behind the toilet. A tiny figure emerged noiselessly from the vent. It was carrying a sickle. The policemen could hardly believe what they were seeing. This figure measured only 6 inches in height. It jumped onto the girl's back, and before she had a chance to scream, it slit open her throat with the sickle. Then it began stabbing the girl, stabbing until she was dead. But the horror was not over. The tiny figure sliced up the girl's face and cut out her tongue. Afterwards, the figure approached the video camera. The figure's face was that of a gnarled and wrinkled old woman. It looked directly into the lens and hissed, "You're next." Then the tiny figure disappeared back through the small vent, carrying the girl's severed tongue. After watching the videotape, the police officers wiped tears from their eyes. Some puked on the floor, and one even lost control of his faculties and pooped his pants. He was so scared. Today, the case remains unsolved, and the tiny woman has never been identified. The videotape still exists, but the police refuse to release it to the public. It sits in an evidence locker at the police station. The police call this case the Sickle Mystery and refuse to discuss it with the media. Man, I love how that story is told like a real one. Maybe it is real.
It could be.
Maybe there is a 6-inch
never
woman out
know.
there. I mean, she'd have to be, what, that big and carrying a big old sickle? I mean, for her to be big. Ooh. You're next. Well, it's mid-hour. I guess Kelsey calls it mid-hour. So I'll throw up our stuff here and promote like he likes to do. Does he still have this, have Normal Alabama? What is this right here?
He should.
Let me see. Let me get the scarecrow off of here. And let's see if I can play a little ad here. What is this thing? Ooh, that thing's creepy.
I was having fun. Put my eyes right out of
I thought there was a little Abnormal Alabama ad on here before. Here's that little creep. Oh, there we go. That's a good one. Abnormal Alabama. And go ahead and throw Kelsey's book up here. The Dating the Dead and Spectrophilia. And of course, the other one, Dating the Dead. DatingTheDead.com if you want to read some strange stories about dating ghosts, Bigfoots, inanimate objects. And this book here tells about digging up the dead and having a little date with them. So be sure to check these out. AbnormalAlabama.com, DatingTheDead.com. That's Kelsey Graham, who's out tonight because he's taking care of a sick friend who had to go in the hospital. So we wish him well. And here is mine. I started to say abnormalalabama.com. No, this is myhauntedDolls.com. MyhauntedDolls.com. And you can shop till you drop, and get a good Halloween present for somebody. Like my book, My Haunted Collection, that tells about several of my original haunted items that got me started on this weird journey of collecting haunted dolls and objects. You can read the Legends of Indian Narrows, where you'll see the stories I grew up listening to, and also My Childhood Home that had a lot of spooky occurrences. Then we have books, novels based on real haunted dolls that I've collected. Patty Doll, Tammy Baby. Or the last one, which is Crimson the Blood Painting, based on a haunted painting I own that belonged to a practicing witch in Salem, Massachusetts. That's a good Halloween story right there. Perfect for Halloween or any time of the year. Even Christmas, you can tell good ghost stories. You can buy these as Christmas gifts. So check those out. MyHauntedDolls.com. It links to my podcast where I tell horror stories and ghost stories. And it also links to my YouTube page where you can watch my videos. You about to say something?
I was, at Christmas time, they used to tell ghost stories.
Yeah.
And
around the hearth.
Tradition, I guess, went away. I'm not sure. I don't know if anybody else that tells ghost stories than us weirdos or us abnormals. Let me get it right.
Let's see. What's that one? Christmas Carol. That's a ghost story at Christmas time, written by Charles Dickens. And it's kind of creepy. I mean, you see the little sweet movies that they made, but if you read the original story, it is kind of creepy in there. So that's worth checking out. All right.
And not many people know about the original. The what? Like Disney, a lot of people don't know about the original. Yeah. They all think, Mickey's A Christmas Carol, or
the Muppets
the one
Christmas
with Fonzie
Carol.
In it.
The Muppets Christmas Carol.
And then there's one with Fonzarelli in it. The guy that played on Happy Days.
Yeah, he played one. He played Scrooge.
He played one. That was my dad's favorite.
Oh, yes. I don't know. I'm sure I probably saw it, but it was a long time ago. Yeah, I remember he played kind of a Scrooge character there. And I have to look that one up.
And there's a lot of
the Disney one had Scrooge McDuck, and Mickey Mouse was his employee. What was his name? I can't remember. Bob Cratchit, that was his name. And little tiny Tim.
Tiny Tim. He always had something wrong with his leg. I never could understand why something wrong with his leg would make him die.
Yeah. And he said, God bless us, everyone. All right. Well, you want me to, did you have any other stories? Or you want me to go ahead and keep going with some?
I'm going to let you go ahead because my internet's in and out.
Okay.
And I'm just gonna sit back and listen and make funny faces.
All right, we'll throw that scarecrow back up here. Does
You
he,
know,
he kind of
like,
sets the mood? I like him. Let's see here. Now I had another one up here. There's another one that's a Halloween night scary story. In fact, it's called Halloween Night. So I'll go ahead and share that one. This is another one of those careful where you go and who you're with and who might be following you on Halloween night. So, on Halloween night in 2002, four young girls were walking down a lonely street when they passed by an old church. Standing outside was a man dressed in a clown costume. He asked the girls if they had seen his puppy. When they said they hadn't seen it, the man asked them to help him find the lost dog. The girls agreed to help in the search, and the man in the clown costume led them into the old church. As soon as they went through the door, the man locked it behind him, trapping them in the old building. The girls realized they had been tricked, but it was too late. They tried to flee, but he was too fast for them. The man tied the girls up and kept them in the old church for hours. He did unspeakable things to them, and their screams echoed off the marbled walls, the wooden rafters, and the ornate ceiling. After he had had his fun, the poor unfortunate girls thought he would let them go, but they were wrong. He killed them one by one and then escaped into the night. People who saw the clown walking down the street didn't think anything of it because it was Halloween night and many people were wearing costumes. If only they had known that this clown costume was red because it was covered in blood. Real blood. The next morning, the local priest was surprised to find the church doors were unlocked. He went inside, and in the darkness, he heard a mysterious dripping sound. As he walked down the aisle, he saw a pool of blood lying on the altar. He quickly turned on all the lights in the church and gasped in horror at the terrifying sight that met his eyes. The dripping sound was coming from the headless bodies of four young girls that were hanging upside down from the rafters. Their blood was dripping down from the bloody stumps of their necks and forming a pool on the altar. But worse was yet to come. The girls' bodies were buried in the small cemetery behind the church. Just a few weeks later, their parents received four mysterious packages in the mail. When their parents unwrapped the packages and opened the boxes, they recoiled in horror. The boxes contained the severed heads of their dead daughters. Some people say that if you visit that old church on Halloween night, you will see the ghosts of the four young girls standing on the altar. According to the legend, you can still hear their screams echoing in the darkness. To this day, the man who murdered the girls has never been found. So when you're out this Halloween night, if a man ever comes up to you and asks you to help him find his lost puppy, remember this story and run. Ah, that's a good one. That was a good
That was a
creepy.
good one. That was a
Yes.
very good one.
And when I first read that, I thought of those clown sightings that we had back in, I think, 2016. And I wonder
Yes.
if that story didn't spawn out of that because um, those were creepy. There were people that would wake up. There was one neighborhood where three or four houses where the owners had those doorbell cameras and security cameras outside their houses that would go off,
Mhm.
kind of like motion detecting. They would wake up next morning and it would show on their computer that there was something taped, and they play it, and there's a clown just standing there staring at the camera outside the house. And
Tell you something. Let me
police
tell you,
figured
as a
it. The police just figured it was pranksters, but this story will make you think twice about that. Oh, here's a good one, a good Halloween story with a simple title called Tap, Tap, Tap. Huh. All right, let's see. Let's see what Tap, Tap, Tap is all about. I will tell you a story about something terrible that happened on Halloween. This story is true, so they say, and it made my hair stand on end just to hear it. It all happened many years ago in town, which at that time was just a little town between the mountains of Catalonia, Spain. The town was little more than a small square with a church, a park, a prison, and a school, with all the houses clustered around. The town was very proud of their school since it had been voted the best school in the province. It was the morning of October 31st, Halloween, and a class of students were doing arts and crafts in their classroom. Some were cutting skeletons out of sheets of paper, some were painting vampire bats, and others were drawing pumpkins. The students were all aged between 8 and 9 years old. Their teacher was a beautiful young woman who had only been working at the school for 1 month. While the children were having fun, preparing the Halloween decorations, the teacher turned the radio to listen to the weather forecast. She was planning to organize an outdoor Halloween party for the kids later that day and wanted to be sure that it wouldn't rain. Suddenly, the weather forecast was interrupted by a news bulletin. This is an important announcement. A convicted murderer has escaped from the local prison and is on the loose. He is described as armed and very dangerous. Please do not attempt to apprehend him. The police will click. The teacher rushed across the room and switched off the radio. She did not want to alarm the children, but it was too late. The children had all heard the broadcast and were very frightened by the news. They knew that the prison was very near the school. The teacher tried to reassure them and told them not to worry. A few minutes later, the principal made an announcement over the intercom. Attention, all teachers. We have been informed that police are dealing with a very serious situation that is occurring right now in the town. All teachers are advised to lock the doors and windows of their classrooms until the police get the situation under control. I repeat, lock all doors and windows until further instruction. That is all. The teacher told the class to stay calm. She took out her key and locked the classroom door. Then she went around and closed every window, making sure that they were secure and nobody could get in. One little girl raised her hand and asked if she could go to the bathroom. The teacher didn't want to let her go, but the girl insisted. The teacher finally relented and gave her permission to go to the toilet. After all, it was unlikely that the murderer would come to the school. She told the girl that when she came back, she would have to give a secret knock at the classroom door. Then they would know that it was her and they could let her back in. The code was 3 taps and 2 scratches. Tap, 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 scratch, scratch. The girl left to go to the bathroom, and the teacher locked the door behind her. To take the children's minds off the scary situation, she started telling stories. After 20 minutes had passed and the girl still had not returned, The teacher began to worry. What is taking her so long? She wondered out loud. Suddenly, they could hear footsteps in the corridor. Everybody in the classroom froze. Then they heard a noise at the door. Tap, tap, tap. Scratch, scratch. Ah, she's back, sighed the teacher in relief. She walked over, took out her key. What if it's not her? Asked one little boy who was shivering with fright. The teacher hesitated, her key inches from the lock. Again, they heard a noise at the door. Tap, tap, tap. Scratch, scratch. It must be her, said the teacher. She put the key into the door and unlocked it. Suddenly, the classroom door burst open, and a tall man was standing there. In his right hand, he was holding a knife, and in his left hand, he was holding the little girl's severed head. The escaped murderer came into the classroom, smiling from ear to ear. The children were trapped inside. All that could be heard in the corridors of the school were screams of terror and squeals of pain. In the chaos, the teacher managed to break a window and jump out. She barely escaped with her life and crawled to safety. The children, however, were not so lucky. When the police arrived, they found the murderer sitting in the middle of the classroom. The floor, walls, and ceiling were covered in blood. Little body parts lay scattered around. He had chopped up every little child in class into tiny pieces. They found the headless body of the little girl in the third stall of the bathroom. The police figured out what had probably happened that cold October day. The escaped prisoner must have been hiding in the toilet when the girl was asking for permission to go to the bathroom. He must have surprised her in the stall and forced her to tell him the password. When she did, he cut off her head. Today, the teacher is in a psychiatric hospital. She never recovered from the incident, and she cannot stop repeating over and over again, tap, 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 scratch, scratch, tap, 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 scratch, scratch. The school was abandoned because parents refused to send their children there. There were too many bad memories. The school was left just the way it was when the murders occurred. They say that if you visit the old school building and go into the classroom, you can still see the blood still dripping down the walls. If you are brave enough, you could even go to the bathroom, just tap 3 times, and scratch 2 times on the door of the third stall, then open it. You will see the headless body of the little girl sitting on the toilet. Oh, man.
Wow, that was a scary one.
That was a rough, mean story.
Don't tell that one to your kid.
No,
Don't tell that one to a kid before you send them to school.
and what's funny is this story is located on a website called Scary for Kids. I don't think that's for kids, maybe for adults.
I don't either. No.
In fact, you have to be kind of careful with these stories. We've had some problems in schools that can bring back. I didn't know it was going to go that far. I was already halfway through.
Yeah, you couldn't stop at that point.
Yeah. I don't like any. I hate when I'm watching a horror movie and there a little kid or a pet gets hurt. Let the teenager get yanked around.
That's right. Let the teenager get yanked around.
But the little kid and the little doggy don't let them.
Or the kitty cat. Don't hurt the kitty cat.
In fact, my sister laughed at me because she encouraged me to watch that movie, Autopsy of Jane Doe. I don't know if you've seen that one or heard of it.
I
It's
have
on
not,
Netflix.
but I'm gonna watch it tonight.
Oh, okay. I don't want to give anything away, but
No,
speaking of that,
go ahead and tell me about it. That way I won't
well,
be too scared.
well, I mean, the movie's good. The only part that because she got the willies from it. I watched it. Yeah, it's a good movie. But it didn't scare me a lot. But what made her laugh was the part with the kitty cat. I said, "Dad, Nabby, why didn't you tell me there was a cat in peril in this movie?" And she's like, "There's people getting killed, and you're in here talking about a cat." I said, "Yes, the kitty cat. I don't want to see the kitty cat hurt."
Who cares if people die? It's the animals.
Oh me.
We're
Let's
awful,
see.
aren't we?
I know. As long as it says no animals were hurt or injured during the filming of this movie. Who cares about the people? God. Oh, me. Here's some little short Halloween stories that would be interesting to share here. Here's the first Halloween tale. It's called The Abandoned Factory. Four girls were walking home from a Halloween party in 2002. They were walking by an old abandoned factory that stood next to a field. The factory was said to be haunted, and many people in the area refused to set foot inside the factory grounds. When they got to the middle of the field, one of the girls said it would be fun to explore the old factory. The other girls were scared at first, but eventually one of them agreed to do it just for fun so they could tell their friends at school about it. Two of the girls climbed over the fence, and the other two girls waited outside for them. After about 20 minutes had passed, the two remaining girls started getting worried. Suddenly, they heard blood curdling screams coming from inside the old factory. It sounded like their friends. Terrified, the two girls ran all the way home. The two girls who went into the factory were never seen again. Today, the factory still stands. They say that if you dare to enter the grounds on Halloween night, then you too will vanish, never to be seen again. Now, they share this story, but yeah, they don't say where. Hey, where? I want to know where this factory is so I can stay away from it.
I want to know so I can go look at it
You want to go look at
and
it?
see if there's any ghosts. I want to see if there's any ghosts.
I don't want to disappear. I want to come back and tell what I saw.
Well, we could go put up secret cameras all around and come back and get them later. Or
Yeah.
my GoPro actually, I can put the camera here and I can watch it on my phone like this.
Yeah. Yeah. And do a live feed so if something does happen that people will see what happened. And
That's right.
we can do that old gag like in the movie Poltergeist, tie a rope around the person going in and something happens, drag them back out.
That would be funny. All right, Kevin, you go first.
Oh, I got to be the Aaron to your Zach.
Because you're the man. You know, you're supposed to protect us little women.
I meant to tell that last week. We were talking about ghost adventures, and I think because me and Kelsey bantering, I don't think I finished my thought. I said I can't. One thing I can't stand about Zach is when he sends when he knows something's dangerous, and yet he does not hesitate to send somebody by themselves down there. Not him now, but somebody by themselves, like Aaron. And he's got that Bela Lugosi mirror that supposedly the legend says do not stand alone in front of it because something might come out and possess you. So what does he do? He says, Aaron, I want you to go in there and stand in front of that mirror by yourself. I would have said, no,
Kelsey
I
would
ain't going.
probably make me do that.
I would have said, "Your mirror, you're going in there. Take your spiky hair and go."
I could see Kelsey sending me in there and saying, "Hey, Catherine, stand in front of this mirror. I'll be back." And something coming out of the mirror and attacking me.
All right, the next short Halloween tale is The Bus Driver. On a dark Halloween night in 2003, a bus driver was traveling down a deserted street when he saw a beautiful young woman at the side of the road. He halted at the bus stop and she climbed on board. The woman took a seat at the back of the bus and stared straight ahead. When the bus driver looked in his mirror, he noticed that the woman was staring directly at him, never blinking. But when he looked back over his shoulder, the woman was sitting with her back to him. The driver began to get really creeped out. He could not understand what was going on. Then he came to the end of his route. It was the last stop, and he pulled over and opened the doors of the bus. The woman did not get out. She just sat there motionless with her back to him. The driver walked towards the back of the bus and saw that the woman was covering her face with her hands. He tried talking to her, but she wouldn't answer. He took hold of her arms and tried to make her show her face. The woman refused and struggled out of his grip. Finally, she spoke. "You will not like what you see." And suddenly she dropped her hands and turned. Her face was horribly disfigured. Lumps of flesh were falling off, and her skeletal face could be seen beneath. It is said that they found the bus driver the next morning, lying unconscious outside the bus. He spent 2 weeks in a coma, and when he awoke, he had lost all control of his senses. They put him in a mental institution, and this is the story he told from his cell. So if we have any bus drivers out there and you're finishing up your route for the evening and you see that one lonely woman standing on the deserted street, you might want to think twice about picking her up. All right, the next one is called Cemetery Garlands. It was Halloween night in 2004, and a young boy was being picked on by his brother and some older kids from school. They dared the young boy to go into the graveyard at midnight with a bunch of garlands and place one on each of the gravestones. Not wanting them to think he was a coward, the young boy accepted the challenge. It was a moonless night, and the inside of the cemetery was pitch black. The rusty gates of the cemetery opened with a creak, and the boy cautiously entered. He looks at his watch. It was midnight, the witching hour. Clutching the garlands tightly, he made his way to the middle of the graveyard. He was shaking with fear, but he tried to steady his nerves. He was afraid that if he returned without completing the task, the older boys would laugh at him. Moving slowly through the cemetery, he got the distinct feeling that someone or something was watching him. Finally, he managed to place each garland on a gravestone, and his task was complete. "Well, that's all of them," he whispered to himself. Just then, he felt a cold hand on his shoulder as a voice from behind hissed in his ear, "You forgot mine." That's a good one. uh, kind of a little funny there, I think. Creepy but funny. All right, the next Halloween tale. This one is called The Black Diamonds. One Halloween night in 2005, a 16-year-old named May and her friends, whoop, there goes my screen, and her friends, Irene, Kate, and Leslie, were driving out to a party outside of town. So, of course, they took the freeway. The car was slowing down like it was running out of gas, but the meter said it was full. May and Leslie went to check out the engine. When they opened the hood, there was a hand, a lone, bare hand. They were so frightened they could not scream. Leslie reached out to touch it, and then it moved. This time they both screamed, and Irene and Kate ran out the car screaming. They said there was a man with his flesh torn and a missing hand in the back seat. The girls ran, and the car was chasing them slowly. May called her parents, and Irene called 911 on their cellular phones as they ran. But when the cops and May's parents came, all four girls were soaking in blood. Not their own blood. The cops found a black gemstone, unidentified, in the driver's seat, covered with blood. The girls went ahead to the party. The address was just a vacant lot, but in that vacant lot were many bloody, black, unidentified gemstones. And that's the end of that. That's a weird story there. Kind of don't make sense. All right. I didn't hear you.
I said it kind of didn't.
Yeah. Oh, well, let's try the next one. This one is called The Man in the Mask. On Halloween in 2006, my family and I went into the city because my mom had bought a car and she needed to make a car payment to the dealer. We decided to take my little sister and her friend trick-or-treating out there. My mom made her payment and my sister and her friend were trick-or-treating. It was getting late, so we decided that was enough. We had a long drive back home. We ate at a fast food burger joint and began the long drive home. When we were on the freeway, a car was driving right next to us, and the driver was wearing a mask, staring right at us. Everybody started to get scared. He was keeping up with us and had his head turned sideways, staring for about 10 minutes. Then he just turned and looked ahead and drove past. A year later, in 2007, I was driving home one night. Again, it was Halloween. I was with my little brother, whom I took trick-or-treating. We stopped to get something to eat, and we were on the freeway with lots of other cars. One happened to pull up beside us while we were going about 60 miles per hour. It was a guy in a ski mask. He just stared at us for 10 minutes without even turning his head. And we were going fast, too. Finally, he turned his head and sped up past us to the next victim. And it ends like that. Ugh, that's a weird one, too.
That one was weird.
Yeah. All right. Let's try this one. Mass murder. On Halloween night in 2008, there was a mass murder. The police the police were called, and two homicide detectives went to investigate. Trying not to treat on the bodies, the police took pictures of each one. One policeman saw something on the opposite wall, but he couldn't read it. He walks over to it and sees what looked like numbers, 7734, written in blood. When taking pictures of this, he turned his digital camera upside down and showed it to his partner. When he pointed with the hand that the camera was in, he accidentally took a picture of the upside down numbers. The policeman was about to delete the picture when he realized something. The numbers were now a word. The word was Hell. Hell. I like that one. That was kind of creepy. I wondered if the killer or one of the victims wrote that.
That was sounds like what we did with a calculator as a kid.
Yeah,
Remember,
yeah, I
you type
remember.
3344, or you know, you remember, you know what it is, 7734,
Yeah, and when the
and
teacher would come
on
up,
your
you better,
calculator.
yeah, when the teacher came up, you better hit the zero real quick so it says hello instead of hell.
Yep, I remember doing that. Of course, kids these days don't know what a calculator is like that anymore.
Yeah.
It was a big deal.
They're going to pull up their cell phones and turn them upside down on the calculator app and see what it just ain't the same, kids.
Nope, you guys got it made.
All right. Here's another Halloween story, the last one on this list. It's called Trick Gone Wrong. On Halloween in 2009, two boys wanted to play a prank on the people in their neighborhood. There was a small road that ran right next to the cemetery. They decided to climb two trees that stood opposite each other. Then they both held either end of a fishing line and stretched it across the path. When someone came walking down the path, the boys pulled the fishing line tight, and it would cause the hat off anyone who was passing by to get knocked off. Their first victim came down the path and they pulled the fishing line. The man's hat was knocked off and he ran away terrified. Pleased that their prank had worked, they decided to do it again. They saw a tall black shadow approaching and lying in wait, or they lay in wait for it. The kids got ready, and when the shadow passed, they pulled on the fishing line with all their might. Then they heard a ripping noise and saw a severed head roll along the ground. Yeah, that's definitely a trip gone wrong. Yeah, I've heard a story like that, similar, but it was a little bit longer, and it was about a biker, a bully who was down the road of his town and bullying people. He would make out like he was going to run over somebody if they were on the sidewalk and scare them, make them fall over. And people got tired of it. So these two kids got together and they decided they would play the ultimate, give the ultimate payback. So they did like in this story. But it was at a bridge that you had to ride over, went over a creek. And at the end of that other end of the bridge, there was a tree on either side. And they knew he'd come that way. So each boy got on the side, hiding behind the tree, and they held that wire coming, roaring past or roaring toward them. And they pulled that string, and the motorcycle came and went, and his body was still on it, but the head flew off and landed in the lake. And they say that every year on the anniversary of his death, there's a ghost light that crosses that bridge. And if you get too close, you'll see a motorcycle with a headless body roaring by. I don't remember where that was, but that would have a lot more meat than this story here.
It sounds like a
Oh,
twist on the headless horseman.
yeah, yeah. Headless motorcyclist instead.
Headless
All
hog.
right. Yeah, headless hog.
Or headless hog
All right.
man.
Yeah, there you go. All right. Here's a weird one. I'm gonna go ahead. We'll give this one a shot. Maybe this will take up the rest of the time. This one is called Liar, Liar. If anything about Damien was certain, it was that you could not trust him with anything. His lies, his big mouth, and his all around shady character drove everyone away. His parents never really cared about him. They'd always wanted a girl, and as soon as he was old enough, he got kicked out of the house. They had been anything but a good example for him. But even so, he somehow only got worse from there. He was 29, going on 30 in a month, and his whole life he had never had a real friend. Anyone who attempted to reach out to him thinking maybe he was just misunderstood, they were quickly and efficiently proven wrong. He never had a friend until that day. Everyone in town knows this story. We've all found out somehow. They met in the strangest of places, an old cemetery in the rain, if you can believe something like that. He had been going there to smoke, having just been fired from yet another job. She was going there to visit a grave, unmarked, to lay a single stunningly black rose in front of it. It happened to be just the grave he was sitting on, cursing and trying to light his hopelessly damp cigarette. She liked him immediately, the story goes, if that is even possible, liking so uncomfortable a person that they quickly took to dating. Luna was her name. Luna, as it turned out, lived in a small house near the edge of town. Damien always wanted to see her house, but she was so strange, she always avoided the question. One day he brought her a gift, a necklace. No one knows how he ever got the money for it. Probably robbed some rich old lady in an alley. But the necklace was really something special. A silver chain with a pendant of a little silver snake wrapped around an emerald that seemed almost alive. She loved that necklace, never took it off. One day they were going to visit the place where they met. I found out this bit straight from the source, my brother, who saw what happened. They walked together right up to the gravestone where it all started, and they were just holding each other, looking at the moon, when all of a sudden she says to him, "Do you want to know my secret?" And that rat Damien, he loves nothing more than a secret he can blab. So of course he says, "Yeah, go ahead." And she leaned right in and whispered something in his ear. She was whispering a long time. And when she finally leaned away, my brother says that he will never forget the look on Damien's face. He was so horrified, my brother told me. It would give you goosebumps just to look at him. But then it passed, and after a while she looked at him and said, "Promise me you can never tell a soul." "I promise," he said. What a liar. Because 2 days later there was a call to the police station. It was Damien, and he was scared. I know because I work at the police station, and I picked up the phone that night. You have to help me," he whispered into the phone, terrified. He sounded like he was going insane. You just have to help me, please." Calm down, I replied. "I can't calm down," he screamed. "She's going to kill me. I know her secret." "Okay, fine. What is this big secret?" I asked, deciding to humor what I was sure that either Damien was overreacting or Damien was just plain acting, period. On the other end of the phone, I heard the sound of a door opening in the background. Oh, she found me. Oh, God, she found me. Oh, God. And then he screamed. "You promised," whispered a feminine voice on the phone, and the line went dead. I didn't find out what happened for a while, but I got help right away, and the folks I work with eventually got what we knew of the story to me. No one ever saw Luna again. All we ever found of her was that necklace Damien got her, covered in blood, on top of the gravestone she liked to visit. The dirt under the grave looked freshly disturbed. As for Damien, by the time the police got to his ugly little apartment, he was dead. His body was completely mutilated, and there was blood everywhere. Some sicko had written on the walls with it too, all the walls, just the same word over and over: liar, 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 liar. And the story ends there. Now I want to know what this secret was. Come on, man.
It left you hanging.
It's a cliffhanger. What was the secret, and whose grave was she visiting? Ah, they need a sequel.
Maybe they'll get one.
Yeah, I can make up one. There we go. Well, we still got 9 minutes left. I could look for another little scary story here to tell. A tale to tell.
The night's
Let's
gone by
see.
quickly.
Let's see. This one I think is, yeah, this is a good one right here. This one is just called Cell Phone. I've seen this one before, and in fact, I've seen a picture of this out there. I think it may have actually happened. All right, there was a woman who had a 6-year-old son. One day, she bought a new mobile phone. When she came home from work, she started cooking dinner and left her phone down on the kitchen table. Her son came into the kitchen and saw the phone. He asked his mother if he could play with it. She told him that he could, as long as he did not call anyone or delete any text messages. Of course, the boy agreed and went off to his bedroom to play with the phone. Around 10 p.m. that night, she went upstairs to tuck in her son and found him fast asleep on his bed. The new cell phone was lying on the ground beside the bed. She picked it up and began browsing through the settings to make sure he had not deleted anything. She noticed some minor changes. He had changed the theme, the background, and had given her a new ringtone. She noticed that he had taken some pictures with the cell phone. She opened the images folder and browsed through them. How cute, she thought. He had taken pictures of himself. All right. Then she came across the last photo in the folder. When she first saw it, she couldn't quite believe it. Were her eyes playing tricks on her? It was a photograph of her son lying asleep on her bed. But the disturbing thing was what was lurking in the far left corner of the picture. And guess what, folks? I just found the picture while I was telling that. Let me go in here and find it on my computer now and get it up here real quick. There it is. There it is. It seemed to show the left. It seemed to show the left side of a creepy old woman's face.
That is kind of wicked looking.
It is. I knew I'd seen that picture out there, that story, so I think that actually happened. Man, that'd be cool. Yeah.
But you know, it kind of looks like the face in the spoon that I have the pictures of.
Yeah. I saw a story or a video on that show, Paranormal Caught on Camera, on Travel Channel, that was kind of like that, but it was a lot It was a little less freaky. The mother, it was a mother and her children, and her mother, their grandmother, had just passed away a few weeks before. So it was a big blow because everybody loved grandma. I think this was an Asian family. It was in Japan or somewhere over there. And but everybody loved grandma. No, you know what? It was the Philippines. That's where it was, the Philippines. So they were all sad when she died, and it was about 3 or 4 weeks later. And the little boy had been, just like in this story, he had, I think it was the boy or the girl, it was the boy, had been playing with her camera, taking selfies. And she was there with him, and there was nobody else in the room with them. And she picked up the camera, she needed a good laugh. So she picked up the camera to look through and blew her mind away. The last photo of the little boy, the grandmother's face was right behind him, peering over his shoulder with just a little hint of a smile. And it was freaky yet heartwarming at the same time because it was like her mother was saying, I'm here and I'm still watching over my babies here with you. So they showed that picture on Paranormal Caught on Camera, and that was a pretty good. Those ghost stories I really like because they're very heartwarming and reassuring, and it doesn't really scare me, even though it's kind of freaky. Now, if the picture had been that's a different story.
Yeah. Yep. It almost looks like a hand.
Yeah, it does. Well, I don't know. You kind of see an eyeball there. Let's see. Let me pull it back up there. It does. 'Cause I thought about that, but then there's that little eyeball looking thing. Well, I don't know. That could be a hand. That's weird. You almost
I'm
see an eyeball. I mean,
trying to make my hand look like it.
if the fingernails up there, it could kind of, if you got a hairy hand.
Well, some people do have hairy hands. I mean, does that not look somewhat like it?
Yeah, kind of, a little bit. Yeah.
Let's see, turn my hand over. It's hard to do it. I'm backward. Backward.
Even if it was a hand, though, it kind of would freak you out. Well, maybe when the mother picked up the camera, she might have accidentally took a picture of her hand. That could be. I've accidentally taken pictures of things, and I was just picking up the phone and scrolling, and didn't have a dang clue I took a picture.
Yeah, I've taken pictures of my feet and my fingers and
Yeah.
some strange things.
Well, we're now getting to the bottom of the hour. I can't believe we've gotten the whole show, whole 2
Wow.
hours here. So I'll just say once again, check out abnormalalabama.com. And we're here every Tuesday night doing this 2 hour show. Next week, he's going to bring on that couple. So it's a paranormal couple, right? Some kind of paranormal investigators or something.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly who they are, but we will definitely. I will check them out. This week, I only got like a brief summary of what they were, and but they did leave a message on Abnormal Alabama Facebook page.
Yeah. And
they believe in past lives, and I know they believed in God, and I know they believed in past lives. I think there was like 19 past lives that they shared or something.
Yeah.
Don't quote me on that. I'm tired.
Yeah. I saw the cover of that book you shared, but I didn't have a chance to look it up yet. I'll definitely look it up and see more about it. But that'll be next week. They'll be on here talking about what they do in their book. And speaking of books, I'll go ahead and throw up our book covers again. Let's see. Here's Kelsey, Dating the Dead and Spectrophilia. And datingthedead.com, you can find that book and the other one he's written about strange relationships between people and the paranormal. Yeah, there you go. Get that finger the right way. And then,
I got to use my left hand.
yeah. And don't forget to check out my haunted dolls and my books out there in my shop, myhauntedolls.com. Myhauntedolls.com. And it's got my books out there, my haunted collection about the haunted items I've collected, my ghost stories there at my old childhood neighborhood, Legends of Indian Narrows. Got some novels out there based on some of the haunted items I've actually collected. That's based on the actual dolls and their stories, but it's fictionalized to give you a creepy story. Of course, one of my haunted paintings, Crimson the Blood painting. So be sure to check those out and be sure to like Abnormal Alabama on YouTube and My Haunted Dolls Kevin Kane on YouTube. And we'll be back next week to bring more stuff.
And make sure you add your friends.
Yes.
I mean, think every Tuesday night you get to hang out with us cool folks.
Yes. Us cool, weird people.
We're abnormal. We're not weird.
Yeah, we're abnormal. All right. Let's go ahead and say good night.
Good night.